How much time do you spend focusing on your mistakes versus focusing on the things that you do well? It's so much easier to focus on our mistakes, especially because we want to improve and we want to keep getting better and better as a player. And so we feel like, if we look at our mistakes and we see the things that we didn't do quite well, we will be able to take that information and improve. And that's 100% true. And you have to make sure that you are looking at your mistakes. But we need to make sure that you don't look at your mistakes more than you look at the things that you did well. And we really want to make sure that there's not a lack of balance between the two. Because when the balance tips, right, in favor of you only focusing on your mistakes, this leads to self-critical thinking. This is where you are nitpicking and you are constantly criticizing the things that you did not do well. When there's a balance, however, this is when we have a really nice path of growth in terms of your skills, but also in terms of your confidence. Now, whenever I'm working with athletes in one-on-one coaching, we focus a lot on this idea. Because as athletes, it's easy for us to see the mistakes that we make as motivation for us to use moving forward in order to improve. And a lot of times we see mistakes as the only things that we need to focus on. Because when we do well, it's natural for us to say, I did well. Why do I need to think about that? I'm supposed to do well. I did what I was supposed to. I don't need to give any attention to that. Right? So then we only focus on the mistakes. But what ends up happening over the long term? Well, over the long term, as you brush over the successes that you've had, you brush over the things that you did well, and you only criticize yourself for your mistakes, your confidence will not grow. Well, it won't grow as much as we need it to, right? Your confidence will still grow if you're getting better physically, but it will not grow as much as we need it to. And we can also see this tend to lead to more fear and more anxiety, because the more you see yourself making mistakes, and then the more you criticize yourself over those mistakes, the more you will fear and worry about making mistakes in the future. But why is it that focusing on the good things that you do builds your confidence? Well, it's because that our confidence is built on seeing ourselves be successful, right? The more that I see myself do things well, the more I believe that I can do that well again and again and again. And honestly, more importantly, in the moment, right? In the moment of a game, more importantly than anything else is you being able to believe that you can go out there and play well. Because when you believe that you can play well, you have a high level of confidence in yourself that you can play well, your behavior changes as a result of that. Right? Just think about those games when you play with very little confidence. And then think about those games when you play with a high level of confidence. I guarantee that there's a difference in the type of behavior that you exhibit, and there's a difference in the way that you act between those two games. Right? When you're not playing with a lot of confidence, it's easier to play with fear, to play timidly. You're not going after certain balls. You're not trying to get involved. You're not swinging as aggressively. Maybe you're not running as hard as you need to. Maybe your body language is worse because you're doubting yourself. And all of that leads to underperforming. But then on the days when you do have a lot of confidence, you're playing more aggressively. You're going after balls. You're going after tackles. You're sprinting harder. You're carrying yourself with better body language. You're attacking pitches earlier in the count. And all of that will lead to a greater chance of success. Confidence is one of the most important things for you to be developing as an athlete. But confidence is very difficult for us to develop because it's that sense of belief in ourselves. And if we're constantly seeing the mistakes that we make and we're never seeing the successes that we have, we won't be building confidence. So the way that this becomes more of an actionable process for you is that after practices and games, you want to make sure that you are focusing on the things that you did well. And you feel good about those things. Because when you feel good about what you're doing well, this is where you start to build that confidence. But then you also want to look back and you want to see the mistakes that you make. But you have to make sure that you're looking at those mistakes as a way to improve, and you're not simply criticizing yourself for not being good enough today. So that's going to be the first idea here, right? After practices and after games, we need to look back and we have to see the things we're doing well first. Try to feed ourselves that confident type of thinking. And then we need to try to take the mistakes we make and then learn from them without criticizing ourselves. The second idea that I want to talk about is that as you're making progress within your sport, it's crucial that you're seeing the successes that you're having along the way, and it's crucial that you see that progress. And this goes back to seeing the good more than seeing the mistakes. I work with a lot of baseball players, softball players, and other athletes who are dealing with the yips, where they struggle with doing very simple actions such as throwing the ball back to the pitcher. Golfers struggle with simple putts. Whenever I'm working with players like that are struggling with something like the yips, most of them do not see a complete 180 turn in their performance overnight. It does happen, and it has happened. But most of them experience a gradual improvement until they get to the point where they realize, wow, my game is a lot better. I'm not struggling with the yips anymore. I'm throwing with more confidence. I'm able to make these short putts with more confidence. And so they've gotten themselves to that point. But they've only gotten themselves to that point after a certain period of time of improving. Now, as they've been improving, they've been focusing on that improvement, right? So they've been seeing the things that they're doing well. They've been seeing the improvement that they've been making, instead of constantly saying, well, I'm not perfect yet. I'm not good enough yet. The yips aren't gone yet. And that's a key idea we talk about, because other athletes I've worked with where we've had a more difficult time with getting them to move past the yips, right, and to recover from the yips, one of the main reasons is because as we're working together and as they're seeing, small signs of improvement and they're getting a little bit better, they're still focused on the fact that they're not good yet. Right? They're not perfect yet. The yips aren't completely gone yet. And so what they're validating and reaffirming is that they have the yips. They're not good enough yet. Just like you within your sport, if you're constantly focusing on the mistakes you're making and how you're not good enough, you're reaffirming that you're not good enough yet. You're not doing it as well as you would like to yet. Now, that might very well be true. Just like when athletes are dealing with the yips, they're not perfect with them yet. But we have to be seeing the success. We have to be seeing that progress, because as we see that progress and we see the success, it gives us momentum, right? And it gives us this belief that we can overcome the yips, just like it gives you belief that you are getting better. You are starting to play better. You are starting to feel more confident, which does wonders for your ability to go out there in your next competition and play with aggressiveness, confidence, and play freely, like you need to. So I wanted to make this episode on this idea of focusing on mistakes versus focusing on the good things and the successes that you've had, no matter how small they are, right? Because it's crucial to you developing confidence long term. Now remember, I'm not saying that you want to pretend like you don't make any mistakes. I'm saying that we have to have a balance. We have to have a balance between what we're not doing perfectly yet, the mistakes that we're still making, and seeing the progress and seeing the good things that we did do. And when you do have that balance, you will see your confidence steadily grow, and you'll also see your performance improve, because you will be looking at those mistakes, right? You will be seeing the things that you're not doing as well as you would like to yet, and you're going to take that information and you're going to use it to improve during practice. And when you do focus on the good things first, you're in a much better position to actually use that information to improve, instead of having that information just tear down your confidence because you're being so critical of yourself. So within your game right now, ask yourself, is there a balance between the mistakes and the good things, or am I spending too much time being critical of the mistakes that I make and I'm completely brushing over the good things that I do?